It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. And if you're not watching the show there already, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And go check out the description, whether you're over on YouTube or over on the listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast or listen to your podcast. And check out all of our great sponsors that we have that you'll hear about throughout the show. It's an anomaly, and that means baseball season must actually finally be here, because we had one Pirates episode, I believe, and then we took another break because, quite honestly,
just when they reported the spring training,
yeah, they reported the spring training. So this is basically like a month ago, a little over a month ago, probably, when we actually recorded the episode. And then, we just didn't want to talk about baseball anymore, if we're being completely honest with you. But as a Pirate fan, I feel like that should come naturally to a lot of people that we don't want to talk about baseball. But baseball is here, so now we actually have to talk about it. And so we're going to do that this year, talking about what we think is going to happen in the 2025 season with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But man, what is your, before we get into like some of our like actual predictions of different things, but like what is your just like general outlook? I know we've kind of hinted about it, how we feel about the 2025 season for the Pirates, but if we strip away all of our pessimism and negativity, how do you feel like just generally about the Pirates in this upcoming season?
I mean, I'm excited. I was excited to watch all the starting pitching, and now we know we're going to have Jared Jones for like 6+ weeks. So that kind of sucks right off the bat. Although best case
better than what it
scenario
sounded.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just, one of the maybe, I don't know, top 3-5 things you're looking for as a Pittsburgh Pirates fan coming into spring training, I would say, looking forward to is year 2 of Jared Jones behind Paul Skenes. And we're not going to have that in 6 months, or I'm sorry, 6 weeks is like when he's going to resume throwing. This is 2+ months of the season that we're not going to. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Jared Jones until like July, to be honest with you. Like, I think by the time that he ramps back up and everything like that, and then at that point, they're probably going to be like, I might as well wait until after the All-Star break. We are not going, even though this is best case scenario for Jared Jones and he's not going to have Tommy John, it's not like you're going to see him in 6 weeks. So this is still bad news to me. In general, though, obviously looking forward to watching Paul Skenes every 5th day. I'm a little bit bummed out about the handling of the rotation, sans Jared Jones as well. Like, obviously him not being here, but also no Thomas Harrington, no Bubba Chandler to replace him. They're rolling with Carmen Mlodzinski in that 5th spot. And like, I'm fine with Bailey Falter being in there as one of those guys too. But like, man, I would have really liked to see, I think Harrington is probably the more ready guy. I really was hoping that he would be given a spot in the rotation, sans Jared Jones. So I'm a little bit disappointed about the handling of that. But yeah, full season of O'Neal Cruz in center field. Looking forward to seeing him out there and seeing how he looks out there. Can Joey Bart replicate the success that he had last season? Maybe we'll dive into that when we go through some of our predictions here. But yeah, I still think the starting pitching is something that I'm going to be looking forward to. And just like, I mean, baseball in general is as down as I've talked about it, like from a Pirates perspective, as somebody that's like just so turned into a casual fan basically because of the Pirates. There's still just so much star power throughout the league that I enjoy, just like, especially on the West Coast, like turning on a Dodgers game to watch Shohei. And even though I'm like not necessarily rooting for them, it's still a show every time that you turn them on. So I enjoy throwing on a West Coast game to fall asleep to. So I'm still excited about baseball being back.
Yeah, I agree with you. In general, baseball's a fun sport to have around and get you through summer and everything before you get back to football season and everything that we really dive into. But, I mean, it just gets a little different when you're a Pirates fan. We want to be optimistic, but we've talked about it before. How much can we actually be looking at the offseason that should have been one of the most important off seasons in recent history, definitely probably within the past 5 or 6 years, but even longer than that, probably going back to whenever they were actually competing and going to wild card games and making playoff pushes. This is the most important offseason since that time, and it just felt like they didn't really capitalize on that momentum and having Paul Skenes around. I feel like every offseason that you don't utilize what you have with Paul Skenes is just going to be a wasted one. But, I mean, it's wait and see. We haven't even played one game yet. They start, I guess, technically when this comes out, the MLB season will start tomorrow. This will be coming out on Wednesday. So maybe you're seeing this after the opening day for the Pirates in Miami. But the MLB season is going to be starting. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we're going to give our best predictions of it all on a few categories. One, I just feel like I want to throw it out there. One notorious category that is not going to be commented on this year was omitted because of a prediction last year. I just give that a little throwback out there. I mean, to be honest, your prediction was bad, but mine, I predicted O'Neal Cruz to hit 40 plus. So I don't know which one's worse. Yeah. I think O'Neal finished with 24 homers, but I think Sewinski had like 9.
Well, yeah, I mean, he would. I feel like he had more at bats in the minors than in the majors last year. I mean, that's like. So here he's talking about giving a prediction of most home runs, and we can still throw that in there. I get my thinking with the way that I wanted to do this differently this year was just like I didn't want to go through the statistical things like home run, RBI, stolen bases, whatever, like we did last year.
Yeah, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, because I feel like honestly, when you look at the offensive output that we had last year, what the roster looks like, really not that different. The answers could basically be the same, or we could just say Brian Reynolds across the board. So like. I don't know. To me, I think this is probably a more entertaining way of going through it and categorizing them this way. But if you want an answer for who I think is going to hit the most home runs this year, I'll go Brian Reynolds. Safer pick.
Okay. I'm going to go O'Neal Cruz. Very safe pick. I feel like one of us probably should take Jack Sewinski, though.
I'm going to
because look at your prediction
one of us should be right.
No, I'll say look. One of us should take Jack Sewinski because look at your prediction a year ago or I guess 2 years ago for the Penguins' top goal scorer for the season. You said Rickard Rakell had a really down year, but then this year he's a 30-plus goal scorer. So maybe Jack Sewinski's going to get hot.
Can I say something about Jack Sewinski, though? And I'm curious to see how they utilize him. I think he should play on opening day. Had a really good spring. Also, it being a right-handed pitcher in Sandy Alcantara. I think that Jack should play over Tommy Pham in the outfield. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the route they're going to go. I'll say this about Jack Sewinski. I'm not predicting that this is going to happen, but say he were to replicate year 1 and year 2, where he had like 48 total homers across those 2 seasons, he could potentially be the X factor of this team. Like if they get that type of power, contribute to the lineup, which I would say we're not necessarily expecting because of what Sewinski did last year, that changes the conversation entirely to me about the way that this offense could produce. If you still have a full year of O'Neal, hopefully, I'm curious to see how that transition goes. Like if the defense impacts the offense at all, like I'm curious to see, like, is he going to be getting more reps out there, maybe not spending as much time in the cage because of that? I'm curious to see how that goes from that standpoint. Can Brian Reynolds bounce back a little bit? I feel like we're just to be dealing with Brian Hayes' back issues. It's to be like a managing thing every single season. Is Joey Bart, again, going to replicate the last year? Because if those things happen and you get Sewinski's power from the first 2 years as opposed to last year, I mean, to me, that's an X factor. And to me, having that power in the lineup could be a real game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Pretty sure Game Changers 6 Pirates designs, I feel like. Skenes, Jared Jones, Andrew McCutchen, O'Neal Cruz, Clemente, and that double-sided Barry Bonds one. So I think they got 6 designs for you Pirates fans. Use AT412 at checkout. Save yourself $10 on your order. All right. I mean, I guess we can dive into this. We'll see if Jack Sewinski's name comes back up. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. I know it's not going to be from me. Spoiler alert. But just to give you guys a rundown of the categories before we jump in. Most improved, biggest surprised, biggest disappointment. And then we're going to do batting title, Gold Glove, and Cy Young specifically for the Pirates. And I didn't throw this on there, and maybe, this could probably be incorporated into this anyway. Maybe it's going to be a double answer as to what one of these is. Let's do a team MVP as well. I know I didn't send that over to you. And then this isn't obviously necessarily a individual thing, but do we believe that the team is going to make the playoffs, and maybe have a little bit of a discussion in terms of what could or could not cause that to be the case, depending on how we feel. Let's start with most improved. I'll kick it off. We'll just go back and forth with who starts here, making sure that we're not stealing each other's answers each step of the way, and it's just a bunch of overlap. I'm going to start with somebody that is not currently on the major league roster, but I think is going to be here in very short order and really help the back end of this bullpen. Kyle Nicholas is who I'm going for most improved. Didn't make the club because he has options left, and there's kind of a logjam right now. We'll see what the bullpen looks like in totality. Rough spring training for David Bednar, coming off not a great season last year. So I think if there's some faultiness there on the back end, he could be a guy. Kyle Nicholas, really like the stuff. I also don't hate the fact that I do think he has some things to clean up in terms of the location. So if he just goes down AAA, dominates, throws a bunch of strikes, comes back up here, and just makes a little minor tweak, I think he could be a really good, effective pitcher. I think we saw it in spurts last year. I think we see it more steadily this year.
I don't mind that at all. Getting some improvement from the bullpen would be good based off of what the execution was last season. So I wouldn't mind that at all. I feel like I probably should have gone first because it would have just continued the conversation we were having. Most improved, I have Jack Swinsky. Last year, okay. I think that last year there was kind of a little bit of a hype around Jack Swinsky, mainly because of the power and probably an elevated role that was going to be had with.
And the advanced numbers liked him quite a bit.
Yeah, and I just feel like it never lived up to the hype, was down in AAA a lot, and then, he wasn't even batting his weight in 2024. So I feel like there's definitely room for improvement, and like you were mentioning, I think Jack Swinsky is a X factor for this 2025 Pirates. If they want to get where they want to go into the postseason, I feel like players like Swinsky have to hit their stride this season, and they have to be contributing. Like a player that I think of, and it's not necessarily a one-for-one comparison, but just a player that may be a role player, but plays a lot, and I think should play a lot, and this player did play a lot in their time with Pittsburgh. I think if Jack Swinsky could be like this team's Sean Rodriguez in like 2016, whenever Sean Rodriguez had close to 20 homers, was batting for like 270 plus. He got in a lot of games. I mean, like I said, not one-for-one comparison because Sean Rodriguez played all over, not just outfield. But I do think that Jack Swinsky, at least to start the season, should be the outfielder over Tommy Pham. I would play him there, especially because I think that at least if you're going to get anything defensively, you're getting more out of Swinsky than you do at Tommy Pham at this point. And I feel like with the good spring training, Swinsky has a lot to prove. And I think that he has some momentum to grow on in the 2025 season. And if the Pirates are going to do anything in 2025, Swinsky needs to be a part of it and finally establish himself as maybe not a regular every single day player, but a contributor at the MLB level and not somebody who's just a flash in the pan, because I feel like for majority of his MLB career, that's what he's felt like so far.
37-year-old Tommy Pham roaming left field because Brian Reynolds is moving to right. So O'Neill Cruz in center field, Brian Reynolds in right. And then that left field spot, is it going to be Jack Swinsky or Tommy Pham? And, I mentioned about, I think it's going to be like a true platoon situation potentially with Tommy Pham against lefties and Jack Swinsky against righties. In my opinion, that's what it should be. We'll see if that's the way that they go. But even so, I wonder, man, is Pham still enough of an athlete to cover left field at PNC Park? That's to be interesting to me. And then a first-time center fielder in O'Neill Cruz next to him. But I'm glad that was your answer, because now the listeners and viewers clearly know that we do not discuss these things prior to, because I said I had no clue if Jack Swinsky would come back up in conversation. Immediately he did. So, all right, most improved, Kyle Nicholas, Jack Swinsky. We'll go to biggest surprise. A name that I have not heard really anything on here so far. I'm going Justin Lawrence. Again, going back to the bullpen. And I say this because if you look at the splits, home and road for him in Colorado. Massive difference. Pretty effective pitcher on the road, but pitching in Coors Field obviously did him no justice, as is often the case with a lot of pitchers. Has closing experience. Again, going back to the David Bednar conversation, could certainly figure into that role should David Bednar falter yet again. So yeah, I like this bullpen. Even if David Bednar struggles this year, I think the bullpen is set up to be a strength of this team, just because I'm a believer in the pieces that they've acquired over the last few seasons and kind of what's already in place. You know, getting Dario Moreta back at some point. Really like that Ryan Baraki is coming north with the team as well. You know, like we talked about, there's a ton of conversations surrounding Bednar and Holderman, and I haven't even factored those two in yet. Like, if those two can get back to form, this can be a top 5 bullpen for sure in baseball, in my opinion. So Justin Lawrence is my pick to be the biggest surprise, the name that nobody right now is talking about.
Definitely not somebody that I would have thought of. But out of your first two guys, it's a clear emphasis that if Pirates are going to have success, it's going to come from the bullpen improvement, and that's a big focus, especially for your pick so far. So if this is turning out to be true, those would be some good things. For me, it's definitely a household name for biggest surprise. So that might be a little odd that it is a big surprise, but he's coming off an injury, didn't play at all last year. I have Endy Rodriguez. And the reason I have Endy Rodriguez is he's had a really good spring. And I feel like Endy Rodriguez is going to play himself into an everyday guy. Right now, going to be platooning at first base with Horwitz out. And I feel like there's going to be a case where Horwitz comes back and Endy Rodriguez should still be the guy at first base. We'll see how the catcher position plays out with Bart and how he's performing too. Obviously, Endy Rodriguez coming up as a catcher can still play there as well. But I feel like the bat is going to show up and Endy Rodriguez is going to be a everyday player come early summer for the Pirates. And I feel like that's gonna where they're gonna find some of the success, maybe from somebody that not a lot of people are talking about right now to have like a big season, but I feel like coming off of his injury, that's probably why, and Endy Rodriguez is going to be part of that.
That plays into my biggest disappointment, to be honest with you. I like the Endy pick, and we'll see him potentially as the opening day first baseman. Made the club certainly as the backup catcher, but I don't think he makes the team just as the backup catcher if that was the only plan for him. Yep. I think he's going to play first base. I think they're going to move him around a little bit, and I think he's going to be in the lineup at least 3 games a week. So my biggest disappointment, and I put 2 answers on here because it's different reasons. So I'll explain. Starting off with Spencer Horwitz, and I think the reason that I put him on here at all is because I think even once he returns, because of the type of injury that he's coming back from, like I just have a hard time thinking he's going to hit much this year at all, coming back from that wrist injury, and certainly not for power, which has never been a part of his game to begin with. I think he kind of matches out as probably like a 15 to 18 home run guy in general. Now you're sapping some of that power because of a wrist injury. I just think fans are probably going to be a little bit disappointed in the return on investment, at least in year 1 of Spencer Horwitz, because of the wrist injury.
I mean, I before you continue, I don't know how much worse it can get, because I feel like fans are already down, maybe not necessarily on Spencer Horwitz himself, but like the Pirates' decision to trade for a player that they knew was injured left a sour taste in a lot of Pirates fans' mouth.
And especially like pretty solid trade ship and Luis Ortiz being a part of that, along with 2 other prospects. Like, I think
right. So if he comes back from his injury and doesn't perform well, even if it's not necessarily rightfully his fault, obviously I don't think any of us should blame Spencer Horwitz for the situation that was in. But I feel like a lot of Pirate fans around Pittsburgh are going to have a bad taste in their mouths if that actually comes true.
My other one, so I said that Endy figures into this because I think he's going to play some first base this year for multiple reasons. The other spot, though, is catcher, and Joey Bart is my biggest disappointment for performance reasons. And I'm not necessarily saying he's going to have a bad year. I'm just saying he's not going to replicate what he did last season. And I think that a big part of the Pirates succeeding in 2025 is going to be banking on Joey Bart performing like he did last season. I don't know that it's going to be bad enough where all of a sudden the catching tandem turns into what we thought it was going to be in Henry Davis and Endy Rodriguez at some point. But I just think if you're going based off your expectation of Joey Bart being he's going to be the same player again that he was in 2024, you're going to be a little bit let down. So from that perspective, because I honestly, you look at this lineup, probably going to be hitting somewhere in that 3 to 5, like 3, 4, 5. I think it's probably where Joey Bart is going to be starting out hitting based off what he did last season. I don't see him replicating the same level of success, especially like maybe I'd feel better about it if they added other pieces this year and there was more lineup protection. But I go up and down this lineup and I'm like, it's not there. And I don't think that Joey Bart's going to be able to replicate his 2024 because of that.
Do you think that mainly just it was like a flash in the pan like last year, or do you have any pause because of the pedigree that Bart had coming into the MLB?
I think he's a better player than when he arrived in Pittsburgh. I don't think he's that player. I think he's in between what we've seen so far. And I think that it levels out this season.
So the expectations for Bart are really what's going to be the biggest disappointment.
Exactly.
The preseason
the disappointment is relative. The level of disappointment is relative to the expectation for the player. I think we're putting way too much on this guy's plate for the level of player that he is.
Okay. Yeah, my most disappointing player, and this really sucks to say, but I just it's one of those feelings. I don't have any tangible reason why I feel this way, but had a down year last year compared to what he had done before. David Bednar, I have a weird feeling that his time as the quote unquote closer for the Pirates is coming to a close soon. I feel like he's going to have a down year. And I think that pitchers remind me sometimes of like goalies in the NHL, where a lot of it is a mental thing. And if they get out of this, they can't get out of a funk, they just are not performing well, especially if you have somebody that is like a closer or like a high leverage situation type of pitcher like David Bednar is. You saw him struggle at times last year, was never really able to get out of it during the season, even though he did improve down the stretch of 2024 from what he was mid-season. Never was really able to get out of it fully to the pitcher that he was prior to 2024. And I just have a feeling that that's going to continue, and it's going to be a disappointment for the bullpen to go against the bullpen additions and the bullpen pluses that you had talked about with your surprise and your most improved player. My biggest disappointment also comes from the bullpen. So a little bit of mixed emotions there, but I just feel like there's just something about it where I just feel like it's kind of like come to a head, and his time as the Pirates like main high leverage guy is going to come to a close at some point this season.
Man, and that would really suck just because you feel like this team was holding on to him, hoping that he would be a part of the next like competing ball club. Mm-hmm. And if he potentially would be the biggest reason that they're not, or one of the biggest reasons they're not, if what you're saying does come to pass. So you almost feel like, dang, they should have moved on at that point if we see him fall off a cliff this year. But I mean, signs of it, like you mentioned last year. So I actually would have thought about including him, but I was like, I think you could have made the case he was most disappointing in 24. Like, so,
yeah.
But all right. So yeah, let's get into that section, and now we got batting title, Gold Glove, Cy Young, and MVP. Batting title, I'm going kind of chalk here. I'm going Brian Reynolds. I think he's going to lead the team in batting average. Looking up and down. There's some other names to talk about. I don't necessarily want to go through the list here and throw out who I would have thought about in this conversation, just in case you have them as an answer here. But yeah, I'm going Brian Reynolds. I think, last year was a good season, but like, I think, and it would have been better, again, going back to the lineup protection thing, if you had better years, in front of him and behind him. But I think that there's more to give there. I think he could have been even better. From a Brian Reynolds standpoint, I don't think 2024 is going to be a year that he looks back on incredibly fondly. So, yeah, I'm going to go Brian Reynolds to lead the team in batting this year.
This is the first one that we have chalk, and we're the same. Yeah. I also have Brian Reynolds. There was other guys that I considered putting in this.
I honestly thought about Nick Gonzalez.
Nick Gonzalez is one of them, and then maybe it's just like some weird feeling I had. IKF is another one that I considered having just strictly for batting title, batting average.
Well, before he got to Pittsburgh last year, he was in the conversation, and then
yeah. I mean, that would be a big surprise too if he was able to do that. But Nick Gonzalez is definitely one that I also considered. But Brian Reynolds, looking at his 2024 season, I just went back and looked at the Pirates stats while I was doing this. from that season. And even though it was a big disappointment for a lot of Pirates fans and Brian Reynolds himself, he still was the leading hitter on the team in terms of average. So I just feel like it's hard to go against that. If when he's having a down year, he's still your best hitter. It's an easy answer.
Yeah. I'm curious to see. The only thing with Nick Gonzalez, right? Like, I don't know about Nick York, Billy Cook, like how they're going to figure into the major league plans at some point. What if O'Neill doesn't work out in center and he moves to short? All of a sudden, is IKF the second? There's just some concern there about Nick Gonzalez's everyday role. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's going to be on the roster. Some of those guys I mentioned at the beginning, they're not even on the roster. So coming out of spring, they didn't make the cut. Smitty from around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Not my best transition, but you worked with what you got. I realized I went against what I said. We were supposed to be going back and forth. I'll let you go first for Gold Glove.
Gold Glove for me is Ke'Bryan Hayes. And I know what you're all going to say, the back struggles, and I get it. But we're not talking about hitting. We're talking about Gold Glove. And Ke'Bryan Hayes, despite his injury history of 2024 and disappointing play, was still one of the only players, and I believe the second highest defensive WAR on the team. And I just feel like that's going to continue. His fielding has really never been in doubt with any of the health issues that Ke'Bryan has dealt with. He has always been a stout third baseman. It's been issues a little bit with his back, but it's nothing like his hitting. And I feel like Ke'Bryan, even though, and I will say, I do think he's going to have an improved 2025 based off of his 2024, but fielding is something I think is still going to be steady, and he's going to be my Gold Glove winner.
So I like my pick, obviously, because I picked it, but I hate my pick because of what it would mean for the team, I think. I'm going Jared Triolo. And the reason I say that is because I think somewhere along the line, something went wrong for somebody. If Jared Triolo,
wouldn't that mean that he has to play enough to win the Gold Glove?
So, I mean, he won not just the Pirates, he won the Gold Glove last year in Major League Baseball as a utility guy. So, like, he can move around the diamond, obviously, but is he going to play enough even in that capacity if everything goes right this year? Probably not. So I was between Ke'Bryan and Jared Triolo. I went with Triolo just because of the uncertainty, obviously, surrounding first base. I think he could play quite a bit there, depending on what happens with Horwitz if things don't go well with Andy Rodriguez. Mentioned second base. We have no idea, what Nick Gonzalez is going to look like this year. IKF is an awful shortstop defensively. Like, I have no clue why this is the solution that they're going with. Honestly, out of the 30 teams in baseball, 30 shortstops, he probably has the worst arm among the 30 shortstops. So he absolutely should not be playing that spot. Triolo would be a better option defensively for sure there. So, yeah, I got Jared Triolo there. And I know we're supposed to be going back and forth, but I went first on a lot of them. So I think we're going to have the same answer, but I'll let you go first on the conversation for Cy Young.
Skenes. I feel like I don't even really need to say much, but I will say, and I'll add to it, Skenes is the heart and soul of the Pirates. Skenes is the best player on the team. Skenes is the best pitcher on the team, if that wasn't obvious, but he is the best, just flat out player on the team. He is one of, if not the best pitcher in baseball, and I believe that he is going to be the 2025 Cy Young winner. Even though the Pirates are going to do their best to kill those chances by their abnormal. I'm seeing in baseball, he is going to win the 2025 Cy Young in all of baseball, not just our little Pirates award. But that's why I'm saying, even though the 2025 Pirates will try their best to tank his chances at winning that award for their apparent play when it comes to offense, I still think that he is going to win that award. He is the best pitcher in baseball and one of the best players in all of baseball. and it's Skenes. It's Skenes. There's no other option. If any other word comes out of your mouth besides Paul or Skenes, then I don't believe you.
Yeah, I'm going PS30 here as well.
Okay.
How sick would it be if you wore the number 5? I mean, the merch would sell itself. Yeah. But I'm also going with Paul Skenes, obviously.
Would that be a copyright issue?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe
I mean, PS2, Patrick Surtain is with the PS2 stuff. So.
PS6 and just get out ahead of Sony so they have to buy the copyright from him.
It's big brain right there. And if they have that, I mean, then just jump ahead to 7. Like, just go to whatever number yet they haven't yet. Anyways, right now, Cy Young favorite for Major League Baseball in the National League is Paul Skenes plus 200. Honestly, just looking at this, my favorite value here, Dylan Cease, Padres plus 2,200. If I was a betting man, that's probably the bet that I would ride with for the NL Cy Young. But for the Pirates Cy Young, there's no other answer. And the second best option is going to miss 2 months of the season at least. So, yeah, it's Paul Skenes pretty easily here. And just to keep the conversation going, I will pick him as the MVP as well. I think this team's going to go as far as he goes, understanding, yes, he is only going to pitch 1 every 5 days. We saw how important that was just last season, though. And just like the culture setting that Paul Skenes brings, like the tone that he has set, the culture that I feel like he is building as such a young player and taking that role on, just listening to him talk the way that he talks about this, basically not in his words, but in mine, translating his words, calling us pathetic for hanging our hats on a wild card game, because that's not the goal of what we're looking back on, and they have much bigger aspirations. Again, he didn't say that we were pathetic, but after listening to him talk, it's like, yeah, you know what, we probably shouldn't be like, that's not the goal to be hanging our hats on.
That's our shining moment.
Yeah. And he wants to be a part of that. So love hearing it, love seeing it. Paul Skenes is the guy right now. So Cy Young and MVP of the team.
He would be my MVP of the team as well. He's the best player on the team, and I think he's going to have the biggest impact on the team, despite only being out there 1 of every 5 days. The trouble runs into, how is the team going to play on the days that he's pitching? Because if you divide 162 by 5, you get about 32 starts. Out of those 32 starts, if the Pirates are going to make the postseason, I feel like out of those Skenes starts, you would have to win. If it's 32, you'd have to probably win at least 25 of them at least, if you are serious about contending, because that's just if you have the best pitcher on the planet pitching for you, and then you get to everybody else pitching, and who knows what they're going to do in those starts. But when you have the best pitcher in the world pitching for you, you need to win at least like 3/4 of those starts, right? Or if not more, if you want to be serious about contending this year.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just bring that into the last topic here is, do we think that this team's going to make the playoffs? I think that it took a major hit for me not having Jared Jones for the period of time that they're going to. I would have honestly, like, let's just get this out of the way. I would have said they're on the outside looking in prior to the injury. Now having the injury, I don't see it. I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I think they need a lot of things. They need everything to go right this year. They need Paul Skenes to obviously be what we expect Paul Skenes to be. They need Mitch Keller to only be first half of season Mitch Keller. They need Andrew Heaney to be very serviceable. They need Bailey Falter to replicate his 2024. They need other guys to mix in that 5th spot, whether it be, right now Mlodzinski or Harrington and Bubba Chandler when they come up, whatever it might be. They need Joey Bart to replicate last season. They need Jack Sawinski to be the player that we talked about and bring that power. They need Spencer Horwitz to come back from his injury and be good. Andy Rodriguez, probably a contribution from Hank Davis coming up at some point, because injuries are going to happen. We're not even talking about that. O'Neal Cruz's transition to center field is going to have to go well. Brian Reynolds is going to have to be the player that we know that he can be, the all-star type player. So I just think everything goes right. Sure, they're probably in a position, especially in the NL Central, where they could be in the conversation. But in terms of a prediction, it's hard to predict that everything's going to go right. So I'm going to say they're on the outside looking in once again in 2025.
I'd have to agree with you, unfortunately. I feel like that's a probably pretty obvious answer if you've listened to how we've talked about the Pirates a lot. Well, we haven't talked about the Pirates a lot this offseason. So I guess if you listen to that one other episode, you'd probably have a good outlook on what we think about the Pirates. But man, I just, like you saying, I feel like every single thing of this team would have to go right for them to make the postseason. It does get a little bit easier being in the NL Central, like you mentioned, and you're really competing just for that central lead, which you're really competing against the Brewers, at least looking at it from the outside perspective, is trying to beat the Brewers. But last year, the Brewers had 93 wins to clinch the NL Central. Everybody else in the Central, Cardinals 83, Cubs 83, Reds 77, and the Pirates 76. To get a wild card game, you had to win at least 89 games, which went to the Braves and the Mets. So let's just say, like, for the sake of argument, that the Pirates are going to have to win 90 games to make the postseason this year. Or do we think that this team from last year to this year is 14 wins different based off of personnel? And the personnel is not really different. Like, really, all you're getting is a full seasons of Paul Skenes, which is partially negated because you're not getting a full season of Jared Jones. I just think there's too much going against this team. I don't think that they made enough offseason contributions to the offense and the field where they are going to add to that win total substantially. Will they break 80 wins? Will they break even 500? Maybe. I think there's a decent shot that they could be around a 500 baseball team for the season. Like, maybe they squeak by with 81, 82, 83 games. But I don't think they're winning 90. I don't think they're making the postseason. And it's a shame because everything that Paul Skenes said is going to hold true until the Pirates make a real effort at trying to get him into the postseason, which is crazy. And I want to bring this up before we close. This last question I have for you. Do you think, or does your outlook on Paul Skenes' future in Pittsburgh affected at all by his comments about that wild card game? Like, do you think, based off of the passion, or at least the fire that it sounded like he had talking about that moment, do you think that there's any sort of idea that there could be a future past his 6 years of team control for Paul Skenes in Pittsburgh?
I mean, no, not necessarily. I don't think anything in my mind changed about it.
Okay.
I think no matter where he was drafted to, he was going to feel like that's the team that he wanted to accomplish this with. Like, because he was drafted by the Pirates first overall, and they've provided him an opportunity that anybody that would have been picking number one that year did, but it happened to be the Pirates. I think there's just a level of like wanting to be that guy that gets them back to the like Andrew McCutchen talking about when he was drafted by the Pirates, he wanted to be that dude to put the team on his back and lead them back to the playoffs, which he was able to do. Well, Paul Skenes is kind of having that same statement, but taking it even a step further. But in terms of like the long-term future, no, I mean, I still feel the same way. Like, I think I'm going to appreciate Paul Skenes while he's here and not even like try to think about what the long-term future could be. And I just hope that we have some level of success while he's here.
Yep. Hopefully it comes in 2026. Well, opening days on Thursday for 2025. Hope it's a great season.
This episode will be out before then, so you guys are watching or listening to this, and it'll be happening before Thursday's opener against the Marlins. Let us know your thoughts in the comments about how you think the team is going to do. Just for a record prediction, you mentioned the whole 500 thing, which, by the way, like, I do think that there's a world, again, where if everything goes right, this could be a playoff team. This team could win 90 games if everything goes right. I just think law of averages tells me everything's not going to go right. There's going to be some injuries to impactful players. We've already seen one happen so far. How are they going to be able to overcome those? I'm going to say this team goes 82-80 this year.
Okay. I like that. I think that the team will be better than I probably think they're going to be, because I really have low expectations for the team. So I think that they'll be close to 500. I think they'll be a little bit better than 500. I'll say, for the sake of being different, I will say 83-79.
Okay.
One game better. I just don't think they're going to be quite good enough to make a wild card or win the Central.
Okay. There you have it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you are here on YouTube, if you're listening somewhere else, head on over to YouTube and do that same stuff. But also leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe over there. You can find us Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Be sure to do that for us. And then check out the links in the description where we got our sponsors. We already talked about Game Changers, talked about Teach Barbershop. Now we got to talk about Marcelo Electric, the logo above Tyler right now. Our boy Boots, Brandon Marcelo Electric, serving Beaver, Allegheny, Lawrence, Butler County, expertising in residential, commercial service calls. Schedule your service. Please contact him 724-614-0611. Again, 724-614-0611. The link down below will take you to his Facebook page. He gives information from there, as well as a bunch of reviews, pictures from work that he's done. So be sure to check that out. Again, Marcelo Electric down in the description, along with those other things, along with everything custom designs, our friend Haley Wagner Small Business. Get yourself some Around the 412 merch or customized merch of your own, whether it's t-shirt, hoodie, long sleeve, glass tumbler, a lot of different stuff on the website. Go check out her Facebook page. And then our shorts, DC4L Customs, black, white, gray, whatever color you want. And it's starting to warm up. So, about that time of year where you want to break out the shorts. So be sure to check those out as well. Follow us everywhere at Around the 412 on all of our socials. And let's go Bucks. We'll see you next time. For Smitty, for Tyler, this has been the Around the 412 Pirates. Yes, Pirates show. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.